So hello all. Good morning, good evening, or good afternoon, based on wherever you are. And today we'll be talking about what was left in my DynamicsCon September 2021 session. As most of you know, I normally over-prepare for my sessions, and I presented a topic in DynamicsCon this year about 10 tips for Business Central users, developers, and administrators. But because I went into details of few of the topics, there was a slide where there was some additional tips for users, administrators, and developers, which I was not able to complete during the given time. So I thought, as you would have watched my session in DynamicsCon, and I'm hoping that you're just coming from there right now, we can continue that conversation here, and I can talk about those tips and tricks. So let me know in comments how you feel about it. So without wasting any time, let's talk about the tips which I missed for users first. So the tips that I want to talk about for the users are especially around 3 different setups. There are so many options that Microsoft have added in different Business Central setups, which were maybe customized in your past NAV or maybe also in your Business Central versions. And we'll see a quick demo of all these features so that if you have a mod around it, you might want to switch to the default Microsoft feature instead of that custom that you have built with your partner. And if you don't have a mod around it, you should know about these features so that you can utilize these features in your organization. So the first area that we'll look at it is in the sales and receivable setup. So let me open my Business Central and let's navigate to sales and receivable setup. Now in the sales and receivable setup window, in the journal tab, there are so many options added, and we'll talk about them. Let me zoom this in. There are some which, if you're coming from NAV, you have seen for all these years, but there are so many additions that are happening in the product, so which will help you in your daily work. So the first one is default item quantity. There's a boolean here called default item quantity, and as the details or the tooltip tells you in the application, if you enable this feature, whenever you create a new sales order and add an item in your sales line, the quantity will be defaulted to 1. Now, why this feature was added? Because there are some organizations which sell items which are expensive, so they don't sell it in bulk like 100 quantities or 50. They majorly sell in with 1 quantity. In that scenario, just to reduce one keystroke where user will have to fill the quantity, there is a setup now where if you enable this will set the value of quantity for each line of type item with 1. So you can enable this here. Then the next one is copy customer name to entries, which is here. Now the copy customer name to entries allows you to copy the customer name from your sales transaction to your customer ledger entry, because by default it doesn't flow from your sales transaction to your customer ledger entry. So if you are an organization which needs the customer name into customer ledger entry, then you can enable this, and we'll see a demo about it. The next one here is copy line description to GL entry, which is here, which actually takes the description of your lines into your GL entries. Normally it doesn't go by default, but if you want to type, if you have a description on line type GL account, that will go into GL entry if you need it in your business. Then there is one called allow document deletion, and this is super important if you are using NAV or Business Central for a while. Now in the password of NAV, deleting posted document was not possible. With NAV, if I'm not wrong, Business Central 14, and later Microsoft had added this option to allow document deletion. So now, and it will not delete the history associated to document, but it will delete the posted document, which will help you to reduce the database size that you have. And we all know the database size is a very huge factor when you are on Business Central SaaS. So this option allows you to delete posted documents after a specific date. So you can put a date, and before that date, any posted document that has been created, the system will allow you to delete it. And then there is a new cool feature about the code validity calculation. Now this feature is available, and let me see here it is. Now in Business Central, sales code comes up with a validity calculation. So you can define that, okay, whenever I create a code, after 20 days of creation of this code, the code becomes invalid. That means it cannot be converted to order and things like that. Now this is a default setup on your sales and receivable setup, which will calculate the expiration date, if you want to call it, or validity date of your code when it is created. But you can also change the validation date in the sales order if needed. So let's quickly see what happens. And we have only enabled the default item quantity. We'll see, we'll create some documents, test out these features, and then we'll come back and enable these. So now let's start with the sales code. So when you go to the sales code and try to create a new code, if you do a show more, there is a code valid to, which is right now set to empty because we don't have a date specified in our setup. You can also set it up from here, but if you set it up on your sales and receivable setup, and I should tag this, if I set my code validation period, let's say to 1 day, this is the date formula. And then if you don't know it, quick tip, if you use a page frequently, you can bookmark that, and that will be added to your role center page. So now if I click new and create a sales code now, you'll get a code validation date automatically. So now let's assume this is a code and I have put an item onto it. As soon as I put an item, it gets a quantity 1 because we have enabled that setup. And assuming that I change that code validation date to be today, which is okay. And now if I try to do a make order, the code, okay, I would have picked the wrong date and that's gone. But let me try again. I'm pretty sure it stops me from converting it to an order. Okay, there is surely some checks and balances which I'm missing, because there is also a batch on your sales code to your expired codes, I guess. Okay, to clean up any codes which are not required. So there is also a batch around it. But okay, let's go to sales order and see the next one. So now if I create a new sales order for a customer, and I come here and I choose an item, and I also choose a GL account just to test the other feature also. The item 1 will have a quantity 1 because we have that feature enabled, and I'll just set it to 1. Now I need to give it a cost, unit price, and then let's try to post it. So if I try to post it now, it'll get posted and I'll see a posted sales invoice. When I open this posted sales invoice, and if I go into navigate, or what we call that now, find entries, I guess. Let me quickly check that, where that is. Okay, it was here, action, find entries. It shows me that it created a customer ledger entry. And if you see, there is no customer name here. The field is not even visible, I guess, at this point. But if I zoom in on this, and I try to see the customer name, it's blank. Okay, so the customer name was not copied here. Let's go back and see on GL entries, the description or the GL account name is not copied. And I'm hoping that there is a field called name. Let's see. Description, is that the field? Yes. So it came as the direct cost and things like that into the GL entries, as we saw for all these entries. Now let's go ahead and enable that setup. So if I come to my role center page, I should be able to see my pinned setup. I can edit this. I can say that copy customer name to entries. And as soon as I enable this, if you notice, there is a pop-up that is raised which says one customer ledger entries with empty customer name was found, which we just posted. Do you want to update that entry? And if you want to, you can just click on this button and start running a background job to update those entries. So let's hit that. If you want to schedule it at a later time because there are so many entries, you can do that, and then you can click OK. And at the same time, if I want to copy the line description, I can click on this, and now going forward, this will take my GL entries into GL account type of line entries description to the GL entries. And let me also set it for today that I can delete documents from this date. So now if I go back to my sales order, and if you don't know this, you can also copy an existing document, which I'll do this time, a posted invoice, which I just posted a while ago. I'll include the header and recalculate the line, which means line will be written and the header means the customer number will be copied. If I click OK, the whole details will be back. The comment will be from where it is copied from. The quantities will be same, 1 and 1, and the amount, unit price will be same. So now if I try to post this on ship and invoice, and I open my posted document, and if I go to my actions, find entries, if I go to my customer ledger entry, I'll see that now I have a customer name field, which is just driven by a setup. I didn't have to customize any code around. Let's go and check on my GL entries, and I should see my account, GL account name or description here on my GL entries. So if you need any of these, and let's go back into my posted sales invoice, and I should be able to delete some of the invoices if the date is correct. So if I go ahead and delete this, it might give me a warning that I haven't printed this, so I'll have to go ahead and print a document. That's a minimum requirement before you delete a posted document, and you can preview it. You just have to click on the print button. This will open the print, which will update the count here. That number printed 1. I should be able to delete it now, and that got deleted. That deletion happened because I have the setup enabled on my sales and receivable setup as allow document deletion from. So I hope you will be able to utilize some of these features in your sales area. Now talking about the next thing for the users is if you work on a purchasing department, the similar kind of features are also available on your purchase and payable setup. That you can choose to copy line description. This applies to the GL lines on your purchase documents. to your GL entries, and also to copy the vendor info from your purchase lines to your vendor ledger entries. And also there is allow document deletion. Those three features work in the same way as we have seen in the sales side. So they're not different as they were in the sales side. So I'm not going into a demo of that. But let's quickly check what's on the inventory setup. Now if you open the inventory setup, there are three things. I only listed two. The one is automatic cost post to GL. Now we all understand that we all need to automatically adjust cost post to GL batch in our organization. Now some people run it with the transaction as they get posted, but it slows down the transaction if you are doing so many transactions at the same time, because it need to update certain things based on whatever the unit price you have selected and things like that, what types of items you have. So most of the companies in Dynamics Nav World don't run it while the posting is happening, but what they do is they schedule it with a customization from their partner, so that that can be run every night for a few hours, or once in a week, or once in a month, based on whatever the time that it took to run the adjust cost. Now that was a mod in the past world, or in the NAV world. In Business Central, when you disable automatic cost posting, the system provides you this pop-up, which will allow you to schedule an automatic cost posting behind the scene without a mod that will require a partner assistance. So if you are an organization which need to disable this to run it automatically, you can just use this menu or this pop-up notification to schedule a job queue, which is a wizard which helps you to decide when different batches should run. So you'll click here, you can define which one you want to run, you can define at what time you want to run. By default it starts at 2 AM, this one starts at 1 AM. There is no option to change it here, but if you click finish, it'll create a job queue like this, and in the job queue entries, and you can always come and edit this and change the time based on whatever your preferred time is for both the jobs. But you don't need a modification from your partner to schedule automatic or behind the scene adjust cost batch execution. That was one feature that was added in inventory setup. The other one, which is a pretty old one, but most of the people don't know about it, is prevent negative inventory. Now, by default, Business Central allows you to post your sales transaction even if you don't have inventory for an item available. That's a default feature in the product. But if you are an organization who don't want to post the documents unless the item inventory is available, you can enable this to prevent the negative inventory transaction. And at the same time, if you have been working with Business Central for a while, you'll notice that until unless you change the item description on the line, the description doesn't flow to item ledger entries for your ledgers. In the similar lines like we saw in the sales and purchase side, you can also enable copy item description to ledgers, and this will allow you to move your item description to item ledger. And as soon as we clicked on it, you saw this. There is this pop-up that is generated that there are 1276 item ledger entries where the description was not found. Do you want to update it or not? If you want to, you can enable this, otherwise you can leave it. So now with these two options, let's create a sales document for an item where the inventory is not available, which is, let's try to post a sales order for item number 1900-S. So let's go ahead and create a sales order for this. So now if I create a new sales order for, let's say, Editum Corporation, come down here on lines, choose this item. Because I already have the boolean label on sales and disable setup, the quantity was set to 1. And if I try to post this document now, ship an invoice, this will give me an error or a warning error eventually that you don't have you have insufficient quantity of that item on inventory. So it stops your user to post a transaction when the inventory is not available for that item. So if you don't want to allow your users to post items transaction or sales transaction when the inventory is not available, just go ahead to your inventory setup and enable this. You don't need a mod for this. And I know for a fact that these two are very common mods in NAV world. Now, if you haven't noticed, in Business Central, starting, and if I'm not wrong, 18.3, Microsoft have added capabilities on subforms to allow you to open in Excel. Now, in the previous versions of Business Central, you can only do it on certain pages like journals and all, where you can export them into Excel. You can do it on the main page. I'm pretty sure you can send it to Excel. Let me see where that option is. Okay, it's somewhere an option, but if you want to do it on lines, that was not available in the product earlier. I don't know where it is placed, but it used to be on the documents. But now, starting 18.3, in so many pages in Business Central, Microsoft have added option to allow you to download this data into Excel if you have to modify, or if you want to see this data, what is available on the lines in Excel. And this will expose all the fields which are available on the page. So if for any reason where there's a big document which you want to analyze in Excel before you want to post, and not just sales order, there are other areas in Business Central where this feature is added, then you can use this feature to export the data from a subpage or a subform into Excel for doing your analysis. Now that's all for users. The next one, which is super important, and I want to spend some time into it, is for administrator. Now, as an administrator, it's your responsibility that how things are done in Business Central so that it's upgradable, it's easy for your users and for you to do certain things. And one of the common thing in Business Central is how users can change what they see on their screen. If they want to add a field on a page, if they want to change the order of fields on the page. And there are three ways to do it. One is using personalization, one is using design mode, and one is using profile customization. And all three have their different aspects when they are used. So let me give you a brief idea or a difference between these three so that users also understand it, and you also are able to limit certain kind of changes that users are doing. So now, just for example, if I am on this customer page, maybe if I'm on my vendors page, and as a user, I don't like the order of fields as they are placed because that doesn't make sense to me. I don't like to see the location, I don't want to see the contact for vendors, I just want to see the number, name, and some field in some order. Then as an individual user, I can come here and on this gear icon do a personalize. Now as soon or as the word says personalize, that is very specific to the user itself. The person who is making the change will only be visible to that user. It will not impact my colleagues who are working in the same same team and use the same screens more or less. So as soon as you get into the personalization mode, you see a window like this that you are personalizing this page, and then there is a field button which you can click and it will show you all the fields which are available on the page by Microsoft or by developer. They are available, they are not added. So we'll see what that means. Now if I don't like the location field, I can just go ahead and hide this field. I don't like the phone number, I can go ahead and hide the field. If I want my balance to be moved to a different place, I can just drag this field and place it wherever I want. If I also want, let's say, the currency code, I can drag it from here and place it here. If the list is big, I might want to place my free Spain instead of number to also include name. So I can click on this and say set free Spain. Now this is the changes that I'm doing as a user for my screen, and this will only be applicable to me. So as soon as I do it done, the changes are applied into the page, and I'll only be able to see, as me being the user, the order of the fields that are set. Behind the scene, what happens is there is something called as personalized pages, which will store a detail of that change which is specific to my user. So that is only for me. While I'm doing this is only visible to me. It doesn't impact anyone else in my team who is accessing the same page. So that's one of the safest option. But this comes up with a limitation, which is when I get into the personalized mode and I click on field, I can only see the fields which are available in the design either by Microsoft or by my partner who would have created some kind of code to make those fields available for me. But I cannot see all the fields, and that's where I'll just clear the personalization for a while. It'll revert it back to normal. If I get into my list mode, it is normal. So that's another advantage of using the personalization mode, that if you don't like, you can always revert it back to how it was earlier. So when a user gets into a position where he wants a field which is not available in the personalization, the other option that he or she can choose is go into the design mode. Now as soon as the user gets into the design mode, all the personalization options are available here as they were in the personalization, but then this also gives me an option to to move certain fields and things like that, as I was doing there. But I don't see, because this is logged. Okay. Alright. Because there was a customization, I'll have to reopen this page. And if I get into design, it's still locked. Okay, so let me go into user personalized pages, and there is nothing for that. So let me try again. Okay, because I might be doing something else on this page, so let me pick another page. Let's say item. If I get into the design mode here, I might have done here also. So let me pick a completely random page at this point. Let's say purchase invoices. You have previously personalized this page. Without personalizing, select unlock page. Okay. So as soon as I get into the design mode, and sorry for the delay because of the personalization that I might have done on these pages. I can do all that I was doing in the design mode, in the personalized mode, but additionally when I click on the field, I see all the fields which are available in this, in the source table of this page. All of them will not be available in the personalized mode, but they will be available in the design mode. So I can just go ahead and drag fields whichever I want and place them wherever I want. But the difference between the design and the personalized mode is when you design something and when you say stop designing, it actually creates an extension based on the changes that you have made, which is demo sort of. And when I save this, it will actually create an extension in my extension management with this as a dev extension created by publisher is sort of, name is demo. Now understand this. When you get into the design mode, that applies to every user in your organization. So if I go ahead as a user and design a page in design mode and save that as an extension, the first disadvantage is I'm not doing the change for me, I'm doing the change for entire organization, and that change will be visible to everyone who is accessing that page. The second biggest disadvantage of this is it actually creates an extension. Now you might say that what is the disadvantage if it creates an extension? Now think about it, that when it is creating an extension, that means it's actually creating some objects behind the scene which will consume some object IDs per se to do the same thing which your partner would have done without spending any object, or it might be a very simple thing for your partner to do without any mod. So what I did is I just opened that extension, the demo sort of extension, into my VS Code, and it actually created a page extension to place the fields which I have added in that page in design mode. Now it also consumed this ID which may have been used not now, which will confuse my partner when he is building a new page extension, because he's under assumption that there are no page extension in this database. But when he tries to publish his extension, he sees that, oh, there is already an object consumed or created at 50,000. So it will be very hard for them to make sure that they are not overlapping the IDs which you would have consumed by using the design mode. And I'm talking it with an experience of doing so many upgrades. I have seen people using design mode and ending up with 300 extensions because every user get into it and start designing pages, which causes so much problem, not just for the partner but also for you, because it's hard to manage. Assume the scenario where you have 300 design time extensions, which is super bad situation to be in. And the problem with the design mode is if you design a page twice, it actually creates two separate extensions. So as an administrator, you should try to disable permissions for user to use design mode. That's a no-no for every user. You should not be getting into design mode. What if you have to change certain pages for all users in your organization? There might be a legitimate reason that I don't want to have this view for a specific user or for all the users. I want a consistent view. In that case, come into the profiles, identify the profile that your company is using. Let me just check what I'm using right now. I'm using the business manager profile, and you might be creating a new profile for your company. But for this demo, we'll assume that everyone is using business manager. I can come here and I can edit this profile. And in this profile, I can go ahead and click on Customize Pages. Now, as soon as you click on that Customize page, it'll open a separate tab on your browser, and the ribbon of that page will change a little bit that you are in a personalization mode. You can see why it didn't say that. It should say that. Okay. Now in this, customizing the business manager profile. And it doesn't mean that you are only limited to your role center pages. You can do changes as you wanted for everyone in your organization. I can come here and do changes on different pages. If I don't like to see this graph for anyone, I can just hide this. I can go into any page in my application, let's say posted sales invoice, and I can decide whatever fields will be visible in whatever order. I can do all the things that I can do there, right? Most of the things which are very common. Once I'm done with this, I just need to click done, and I can modify 1, 10, 50, 100 pages in one time. And I need to close this browser, and this will save all these pages, whatever I've changed, as a data in here. So if I come here and see, not this, if I see here and see customize pages, I'll be able to see that I changed 2 pages. And the cool part is, if I have to move this data from your sandbox to your production, I can just do an export profile and it'll download the file automatically for me. So it's easy to move things from one environment to other environment, from your test to production or from your sandbox to production, if you're using the profile customization. So I would suggest that instead of using the design mode, you stick as an administrator to use profile customization to make your pages look alike throughout your application. Personalization is okay because that's for user how they want to see their pages and that's okay how they want to use it. But don't allow users to use design mode because that will be so hard to manage in future. Okay. The last part is about tips for developers. Now, if you haven't noticed, in Business Central, Microsoft is also adding some cool capabilities to make your tasks simpler. And this is just a small subset of those kind of examples. There are different kind of objects which are added in Business Central. And let me show you a quick demo about this, which is about datetime dialog, password management, confirm management, maths, and progress dialog, code units. In a situation, if you have to, let me come here, if you have to get a date and a time from a user, you might create a separate page, you might create a dialog window to get that info. What if I tell you that you can do it with one line of code? You can just click on get date and time, and I'll show you the code in a while, and it'll raise a dialog window where user can pick the date that you want to enter, the time that you want to enter, and you can click OK and you'll get the return as date and time. So you don't have to write codes if you have to get a date while processing any kind of transaction. In the similar situation, if you have to either request a password from your user or you want user to reset the password and you want to make sure that it passes all the complexity that are required for a password validation, that is also can be done with one single line of code. And this is just an example of get password. I just added a confirm dialog because there are 2 options available. If you want to change password, you can say yes. It gives you a window where you can specify your old password, which is, let's say, if I keep it simple, let's say this, it gives me an error that it should pass the validation. And as I told you, this is one single line of code. I haven't written any crazy kind of validation to make sure that this happens. It just happened with a single line of code. In the same way, if you just have to take the password, I can just click no here. It'll tell me the password and the confirm password, which again, if I try to be simple enough, will stop me. In the same way, if you have to write the progress dialog, which is one of the favorite things which we want to write, because it's, the waiting time for process execution is hard for user until he sees the progress of that particular process. In those situations, again, instead of writing the whole dialog thing that we write, there is actually a progress bar management code unit which can show you a progress of whatever you are doing. Once again, I don't have to write it at 10 places. I just had to call a method which is already defined by Microsoft to make sure that this happens. Again, let me show you. We use this confirm dialog here. This was a manual dialog that I created, and I'll show you in the code. But then there is also a dialog management which I can use, the confirmation management. When I click on it, it'll tell me the same thing, but without any funky code. So let's come to the code on that first. So quickly, without wasting much time, and let me zoom in. What I've done is I've added all these actions which you were able to see on the customer list page. The first one was date time, get date time. If you see, I have just used this page called date time dialog. It's a Microsoft page available in Business Central, and I just said run that page and return me the date and time. I can also use datetime dialog that set datetime. If I want to preset some values before user sees that page, I can do that, and then it will return me the date and time that user have entered in a datetime variable, as I've done here. The second one was about the passwords. In the password, there is a code unit called password dialog management, which will let you open the change password dialog where the inputs are where it will it'll require two variables for the old password and for the new password, and it'll return you both the values that user have entered. Or you can just have the open password dialog which will return you the password that user have entered. So you don't have to write any complex code to make sure that the password is complex, it meets the minimum criteria and all. It just all can be done with one single function call. The another one is about the confirm management. Like you saw here, I have written this manual confirm. Instead of this, I can also use a code unit called confirm management, which will return, which have actually two functions. One is that we saw, and the other one is get response or default, which is if nothing was responded, then it will return you the default value. So again, that can be utilized without writing any crazy code to do confirmation management. The progress bar. There is a code unit called progress dialog, which will allow you to give an open copy count max, which is just the initialization of that progress window, which is open copy count. You can just give it the text, or you can give it the max number of count, and then in your looping you can just call the update copy count, as I have done here on item ledger entry. And on every item ledger entry I just updated the count, and it increases it by 1, because that's how it is supposed to be increased. The one thing that we haven't talked about is that there is a math code unit. If you have to do any kind of crazy maths functions, you can be creative if you want, but you don't have to, because there are so many mathematical functions which are available in this code unit, which can return you different outputs based on whatever you want to use. So if you have to do a cost, if you have to do a floor, if you have to do a ceiling, if you have to do an absolute, All those are available in this code unit called maths. Now, if you start using these code units, your code will be more readable, more cleaner. So try to find, and there are so many things in that. I can't talk about this for days, but this is just an example how you can make your code more readable. The other cool tip for the developers is, I'm pretty sure that who have built a report in their past life, they'll understand the value of the data set. Because data set is something that based on which you design your reports. So if you need the data set with Business Central 18.2 or 3, I'm not sure, there is one more option added into the CEN2, which is the Microsoft Excel document data only. If you choose this option, the report will execute and will give you the data set of that report as it used to be available in NAV. And those who have worked on report will understand the value of this data set, because based on this data set, the report layout is developed. So hope I was able to cover everything which I was not able to cover in DynamicsCon session. Thank you for watching this, and if you have any questions, connect me on LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, anywhere. Just drop me a message. I'll be interested in answering any of those questions. I do meet with people in community once in a week. If you are interested in registering that happens every Saturdays India time, 9:30 p.m. to 10:30 p.m. India time. Visit this link and register there, and we'll start talking about things, or you can share your experience about the product that you are learning. Thank you. Have a great day. See you next time in some other conference or on DC Open discussions. Thank you.